from Los Angeles. Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
Wow, I mean, first of all, what a question.
Journalism is about telling the truth, all while ferreting out the bottom line.
I'm a Harrison Hellraiser.
With me, Cary Harrison, as your guide.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
Rethinking Heroes, rethinkingheroes.com. Welcome. Happy Friday. Well, this is kind of an anniversary. So happily, coming up, we're going to be taking your live phone calls about that orgiastic hootenanny that Team Trump is unfurling in competition with the generally sober and fact-based Harris team. And I want to get your thoughts on your own gullibility and also how to gauge how mesmerized half this nation must be over a guy with gold-plated faucets and framed velvet Elvises. Yep, that guy. It's just mind-boggling how after everything, people are still like, well, is there really a difference between Donald John Trump and a black woman? I don't see it. Well, I want to know why. Why don't people see it? I mean, really, let's get right to the core of that. So we're going to look at that in about a half hour. But before we digress into that kind of surreality, I pulled from my archives something that aired only one time live 18 years ago. And by the way, you can see and catch this entire show streaming. You can go to my YouTube channel. Just Google Cary Harrison YouTube. You can also get it right now live on Instagram. Same thing, just Google Cary Harrison Instagram. That's Cary. You can also go to our Facebook KPFK page, and you'll also see video streaming live. Also, it gives you happily live subtitles. At least that was Mark Zuckerberg's promise. We'll see if he's able to fulfill it. So 18 years ago on Air America, you might remember, it was the only progressive talk station in town, and it was during the Bush era Cheney era. And I had on the late Dr. Sarah Weddington. Who was she? Well, she was the attorney who successfully argued Roe versus Wade in front of the Supreme Court. And it was the 33rd anniversary of Roe v. Wade at the time. And she was cautioning that we all better wake up or Roe v. Wade would be reversed and taken away. And this is now the anniversary of that one-time broadcast. And you need to hear what she said because it sounds exactly like it's happening just today. And it is happening just today, isn't it? The same arguments, the same misogynistic view of women, the same grab for power and patriarchy, all this, a great lead in for your calls later and a great way to set the stage for something most of you have never heard, the actual voice and thinking of the woman who changed the world. A world at age 27 as a young attorney, where she spent a year in front of the Supreme Court and had a victory that did change the world and freed up this country for the first time ever in its history so that women would have a chance to own their own physical bodies. She was also the assistant to President Jimmy Carter from 1978 to 1981 in the highest ranking White House staff title there was, assistant to Jimmy Carter. She, this same attorney, was his assistant. Yet the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court marks a pivotal moment in American history, once again effectively ending constitutional protection of abortion rights established nearly 5 decades ago now. Prior to Roe v. Wade, abortion was illegal in many states. Women had to seek dangerous, often illicit procedures, famously what we would call the back alley procedures. We're kind of back to that now, except that you can go to a hospital and they'll just let you die in Texas, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi. It goes on and on. They see this 1973 ruling, the original one, recognized a woman's right to choose, balancing individual autonomy with government interests, and all of that protected health and prenatal life. Today, over 18 states have banned or severely restricted abortion since the recent overturning, disproportionately affecting marginalized communities. Why would I say that? Have you ever heard a single politician say how terrible it is that women of color are getting abortions? No. You've never heard that, and you never will. It's white women. And I will tell you, this was on Bloomberg, also Wall Street Journal, about 6 months ago. They had some hedge fund bosses. One was a woman. She said, well, it's simple. The reason you need to get rid of abortion is that there are 150,000 white people not being born every year. White people are expensive to have. They go to school, they have to have shoes, they have to eat. It could be $100,000, $500,000 just to have a baby and put clothes on it and educate it and do all of this stuff. So people simply aren't replicating that are white. The Republican Party is the party of white people. If you get rid of abortion, you are now plus 150,000 white people. And then their job as the party is to groom those kids starting in school to vote Republican. That's how the party will survive. So it has nothing to do with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who didn't mention it one time either. It has nothing to do with anything. It's pure bodies that vote a certain way, that give tax breaks to the people in charge. And all the tens of millions of moron foot soldiers believe this and guzzle it down. But we're going to break it down. For the first time ever, this is my interview with the late Dr. Sarah Weddington, who passed during COVID, unfortunately. Much as we play you the Pacific Archives, this is a piece of archival history, as it played also on the also gone progressive LA AM talk station called Air America. Remarkably, abortion is, again, the number one issue in the election, this election, and a woman's right to own her own body is at stake. Here's part one of my 2006 interview, excuse me, with Dr. Sarah Weddington.
LA's Progressive Talk, AM 1150. I heard that. AM talk radio is a frightening place, but you're safe here. LA's Progressive Talk.
Harrison, I just have to say that I absolutely love listening to your show. You're smart, you're funny, you're witty. I'm driving I absolutely love it. I sometimes have to pull over to the side.
Mr. Harrison, I want to thank you very much for your advice. It was fantastic.
Harrison, are you Jewish?
I'm calling you because you're the only person that can probably hear this and understand where I'm coming from. What the is going on?
Yes, Harrison, as an African-American woman, single mother, it's my heart so good to hear such an eloquent, obviously intelligent and feeling person.
Wouldn't it have been a little bit more appropriate to take a moment and remember the Beatles?
Oh my God, I love. Yeah.
Harrison on the Edge.
ATLK's new weeknight lineup starts next week. Rachel Maddow, 6 to 8. Harrison on the Edge, 8 to 10. And Lionel, 10 to 1. KTLK AM 1150, LA's Progressive Talk Station.
Heroes, speaking of, we have one with us right now in studio. This lady has done such amazing work. If you are a woman, which would be about 51% of planet Earth, you can look to her with absolute approbation and cheer and plaudits and encomiums and all the other words you can kind of come up with on one hand, because she has done something amazing for you. She has been able to give you your body. Before then, me as a man, by default, not by desire, but I owned your body. Sit, cook, madam. Have babies now. What do you mean no? That's the wrong answer. Slap. Well, all that changed in 1973 because women got together and tirelessly advocated for each other, which, by the way, helps men. It helps men. Why? Because if a woman can actually own her own body, sort of a habeas corpus type thing, right? That means you as a man, me as a man, I get to own my body too. So if Dick Cheney says he wants my sperm, I get to say no, which I would say very loudly, no, or as Howard Dean would say, exactly. So I want to welcome to Harrison on the Edge Dr. Sarah Weddington, the renown-winning attorney in one of the most famous cases in U.S. history, Roe v. Wade. She was only 27 at the time. 27! When she put this through. Incredible. In 1973, was also an assistant to President Jimmy Carter from 1978 to 1981, and the highest-ranking White House staff title. And Ann Richards, whom we mentioned earlier, who passed today, was a legislative assistant to you, Dr. Sarah Weddington, and welcome to Harrison on the Edge.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
Did you like that very celebratory lead-in?
It is the
Pretty
most
fancy.
unusual lead-in I have ever had.
We try. We aim to please here. It's such a treat having you here whenever we get real heroes. And you're humble, so you're like, what is he talking about? But you have paved the way for so many good things for so many people. And now, of course, we're being assaulted by Proposition 85, which I'm going to turn to another microphone and introduce activist Joyce Shore. She's the president and founder of the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Program. And basically, they provide abortions for poor women, something along those lines. And she's long been fighting for rights to choose after a close friend of hers almost died from an infection when that friend was forced to undergo an unsterile, illegal procedure. Proposition 85, which is before us, requires fundamentally a young girl to have to get written permission slip from parent in order to have that abortion rather than having a direct one-on-one contact with her doctor, which is what you and I at minimum insist we have with our doctors. And of course, if something horrible like the girl had been raped by her own father, that's simply not going to happen now, is it? So a lot of this stuff is still part of the battle. Roe v. Wade with our brand new Supreme Court becomes more than ever a major issue, which again, we're going to have to tackle. So Sarah, here you are. I know a lot of people, some people are very confident, the Supreme Court would never screw with Roe v. Wade. Is that a fair analysis for some people to make?
18 years ago.
Now, it is true that there are a lot of people who say that. You're absolutely accurate. But if you look at what's been happening to the Supreme Court, the vote right now is probably 5-4. We don't know exactly what Roberts and Alito would do until they do it. But if you look at their past records, I think you could predict that there's a 90% chance that they will be voting against the kind of rights people have enjoyed. And of course, California is such an important state in this because before Roe versus Wade, abortion was legal in California. The California legislature passed that law, and then Governor Ronald Reagan had signed it into law. So while he became very opposed to abortion being legal as president, when he was governor here, he signed the bill, and people from all over this part of the country were coming to California. And your two senators here have been...
I have an aunt who did that, by the way. I just found out at Christmas time. She disappeared for a year, was out Hollywood. Not quite, but that's why she came here.
Exactly. So California was a beacon of freedom for women from all over the country, but particularly Texas on. So California has a very special place in this whole effort. There are two kinds of challenges that are most direct right now. One is the challenge that comes from South Dakota. South Dakota is one of about 10 or 11 states that are looking at laws, South Dakota's already passed it, that says no abortion except to save the life of the woman. It's the old Texas statute that was overturned in Roe.
Right.
And there's a referendum on it this November on the general election. But unless that referendum is won, then South Dakota will have a law that's the old pre-1973 law.
I'm imagining, Dr. Sarah Weddington, that if you had a nice doctor like Bill Frist making the adducement whether or not her life is in grave danger, because as we know, watching videos that can be 7 or 8 years old is one of the best prognosticatory instruments known to mankind today. Can you rewind us a little bit, take us back to 1973, the case in which we had Jane Roe, a pregnant woman, against Wade, the DA of Dallas County, and how this little thing turned into a huge major law?
Well, you know, it really goes back to 1965. So let me quickly go back there.
Oh, hold on. I think you need the appropriate... All right, you're there. It's 1965. Nice beats.
Actually, I think we need something that goes, woo. 1965, Connecticut was one of the states in the U.S. that made all use of contraception illegal. And so a woman named Estelle Griswold, who worked at New Haven Planned Parenthood with a doctor named Lee Buxton, gave a contraceptive device to a married couple. They were arrested, prosecuted, and convicted.
Absolutely. As a Buckley, I can tell you it's horrifying, the notion they should even be sleeping together in the same room, for Christ's sake.
I don't think there's been a law against that yet, but don't suggest it. And so you had this situation where they were arrested as accomplices to the use of a contraceptive device. And the Supreme Court in 1965 said there is a right of privacy in the U.S. Constitution that says whether or not you decide to bear or beget a child is up to you, and you can use contraception. So Massachusetts immediately passed a statute was saying, well, okay, I guess we have to let you use contraception if you're married. But if you're single and you use contraception, you're a criminal.
That could mean a what we commonly know as a prophylactic is the rubber. Yeah. So using one of those would have been illegal?
Although it was really aimed more at women taking the pill.
Oh, it's your fault again. Yeah. It's always your fault. You see, the problem is that it's your fault. You get pregnant. I may jump on top of you and plant a hell of a seed, but you have the nerve, Toots, to go ahead and impregnate yourself with my seed when I'm out at work the next day. 19 minutes past the hour, we're visited by one of the most extraordinary heroes we know today, Dr. Sarah Weddington. She is the woman through whom Roe v. Wade became national law. She has saved many lives from horrible backroom abortions and such, and allowed a woman to actually possess and own her own body. Pretty extraordinary. We have with us right now two amazing ladies. First one, Dr. Sarah Weddington. She's the renowned winning attorney in one of the most famous cases in U.S. history, Roe v. Wade. Only 27 years at the time. That was over 30 years ago. Incredible good work. She was also an assistant to President Jimmy Carter from 1978 to 81 in the highest-ranking White House staff title. And she's written a book called A Question of Choice in the past. She's also going to be, by the way, you're going to want to know about this, a guest speaker at a fundraiser for the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project, and that's tomorrow night. So if you have the rare opportunity to meet this amazing woman, do not tarry. It's going to be held at a private house in the West Hollywood Hills from 6 to 8 p.m. There's also going to be a Q&A session, valet parking included, which we have at the Kookaroo here. We have it at the Laundromat here. We love L.A. Valet parking for whatever you might need, including home, if you're lucky. Tickets are $85 a person, can be purchased by calling 323-223-7727. And I know you're driving and just totally went off the road trying to scramble that number down. So you can give us a buzz at 877-520-1150. Or if this is easier, you can go to rap.org, and that's WRRAP,
which has now been overturned. So you're getting to hear what she went through, what it was like, and what it meant at the time.
To have you here. I also want to introduce next to you activist Joyce
give a
Shore.
shout out to KPFK because of KPFK, we're able to bring you this kind of audio.
And has been fighting the right to keep choice available and against Prop 85. If you ever hear the word Prop 85, as Nancy Reagan would say, just say no. Just say no. And that's all you need to remember. Just be Nancy Reagan. As much as it might hurt, you may exsanguinate, you may have a rectal prolapse. It really doesn't matter. Just say no to Proposition 85. Have I delighted and thrilled you ladies now?
Absolutely.
I've never seen such horror. They wheeled back in their chairs, but I'm here to please. Well, you guys have done such heroic things. And Dr. Weddington, we did lose Ann Richards today.
Yes.
A major loss. She worked with you, and we were talking about what a hellraiser she was.
Anne is a person that when I was first running for office in 1972, we'd never had a woman elected from Austin, Travis County to the Texas legislature. And Anne had really worked in politics in Dallas. I was a young woman just out of law school. And so we had lunch with Ann Richards, and I think she took pity on us because we didn't know what we were doing. We just wanted to change the world. And especially for
God,
women.
we love the sound of that. Oh, can we just rewind that and hear that thing again and again and again? I guess not. Yeah, I guess we can. You wanted to do what?
Well, change the world, and especially for women. See, I had grown up playing half-court basketball. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't even let women run full court. After 2 dribbles, it was called traveling, a technical violation. We had to stop. Women weren't allowed to teach in the classroom if they were pregnant. You couldn't get
what, because it catches or something?
Well, maybe students didn't know about all that. And you
the stork thing. And there could be bird poop on the floor.
I mean, you don't know.
Yeah, well, I still don't know.
Oh, I don't believe that.
All right, I do.
No. Or, for example, if a woman wanted credit, she had to get her husband's signature. at the University of Texas Health Center, you could not get access to contraception as a woman unless you certified you were within 6 weeks of marriage, because you needed to start the pill to be protected for your wedding night, but otherwise you shouldn't have it. So there were so many issues.
What was supposed to happen on the wedding night?
Well, they didn't tell us that.
Exactly.
We're just ready for it. So it was one of those periods where women were saying, this isn't right.
Yeah.
And society was saying women don't, women can't, women shouldn't. And Ann Richards said, I'll help you. And so she helped run the campaign. I won. And then she became my administrative assistant. And then we've served on boards together. We live probably, 8 blocks apart.
Wow.
And her daughter now is the head of Planned Parenthood in Washington. Another daughter's just adopted a baby. I really will miss her.
Yeah, we all will. We're talking with Dr. Sarah Weddington. She's the lady responsible for Roe v. Wade being passed through the Supreme Court, being a national law. As we continue, we're going to talk more with her, plus with activist Joy Shore about Proposition 85, which is looking to reverse that locally in the state of California, in which fundamentalists are having the fun with that. As we continue live and local, it's Harrison on the Edge.
Harrison on the Edge. On LA's Progressive Talk, AM 1150.
What if you could help?
Oh, what an era. What an era that was. Unbelievable. When we could do that kind of stuff. I mean, do you know how brave it is for us to be able to do anything on the radio anymore, to talk about real stuff? That's what we're doing here. That was the late Dr. Sarah Weddington, who has successfully argued and established Roe versus Wade in front of the Supreme Court in 1973. That interview was exactly how it aired 18 years ago, when Weddington warned that it would be overturned someday by a political Supreme Court. Much as we play the Pacifica Archives, that was a piece of history that was the first for many. Abortion has capitulated to the forefront of the 2024 presidential election, with many voters, especially women, citing it as a make or break issue. We're going to hear from you coming up in a few minutes. We're going to take your calls. We're going to talk about this weird moment that we're all living in, where people seem to be riding the fence and don't see a difference in anything. Could we have such an idiotized population that is absolutely the case? Or are they just lying to you? I don't know. I want to get your take on it. But right now, we're going to pause for a second and give some love to KPFK, because without KPFK, there is no history and no history to play. Psh.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
All right, let's take a second and give some love to KPFK. We are so lucky that the only existing radio station in Southern California is KPFK at this point. We are it. Luckily, we are the strongest FM west of the Mississippi. Luckily, we reach millions of people all the way up north of Santa Barbara, all the way out east, sometimes to Nevada, depending on the weather, out into the Pacific Ocean, and down as far south as Mexico. This is a legacy radio station, about 212,000 watts. When this thing went on the air, there were no other competing FMs, and it was public radio in the very beginning, after which, by the way, NPR modeled itself. Yeah, we predate NPR. They modeled themselves after us. The station you're listening to right now, the entire NPR network, modeled themselves after us, because we were out there talking about the news that wasn't getting on the news. Back then, like today, the news was sponsored, and your sponsor said, no, you can't do those stories or we won't pay. And pay was the point. And of course, the station doesn't do that. We rely on you to support the information that is simply not available anywhere else. It is not going to be on CNN. It is not often going to be on MSNBC. It is not going to be on Fox. It is not going to be on CBS, on NBC, on One America News, on Newsmax, on wherever you might go to get your confusing data. And you ask the same question 100 times a day, don't you? Where do I find news? I mean, seriously, where do I go? You can't even say New York Times, because that's not sufficient anymore. Here at KPFK, we do the job. We take the risks. I take the risk. You take the risk by listening. This station, this show, Rethinking Heroes, is banned in many states in the Southeast because it renders into an audiobook through audible.com and is therefore on the list. What a joy that is. And we've got millions of people who get to enjoy real information and know that when you pick up the phone right now and call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, and make a donation to KPFK, you will have a donation that will last a lifetime. This is not 18 years ago, such as that audio you heard, when you would make a donation, it went out one time, that was it. There is now every possible permutation on the internet. And because I live stream video unusually on this station, that is also available forever in perpetuity. On Facebook right now, this is live streaming. That video will stay there. On YouTube, that video will stay there. On Instagram, that video will stay there. On TikTok, that video will stay there. So your donation that supports this information, archival audio that no one's ever heard before, except one time 18 years ago, the actual voice of the woman who gave Roe v. Wade and what she went through and the death threat she received at the time, but the accomplishment she made showing that women can do it. That's the take home. You just got to hear that. And that's because of KPFK. So I want you to pick up the phone. Pick it up and call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Make a pledge for $75, for $100, $125, whatever you feel you can, knowing that that is a legacy permanent pledge. That pledge, that amount you pay, will be good for years to come because you will have published permanent history vis-a-vis the internet. This is an extraordinary time. Not only do we get to support free speech, unabated, unabridged free speech, we get to bring you information that is forbidden, that is banned, that has disappeared, that no longer can be kept or archived. We find it, we dig it up, we bring it to you, but that it sticks around because many of us have the technical skills to make sure that it gets out on multiple media platforms, including digital, like right now. If you're driving and you have to get out of your car, you can pick up your phone. You can go to my YouTube channel, Cary Harrison YouTube, and continue to listen to the show or watch the show. And knowing it's going to be there forever and that your pledge doesn't support me or YouTube, but it supports the station. The station is the mothership where we get to bring out news and information. Once again, 818-985-KPFK. Please pick up the phone. Throw $50 at it. Throw $50 at the millions of people who need real education. There should not even be a single swing voter in the United States, not even one. There should be no opaque difference between a woman of color and Donald Trump. There should be no question that they are not the same person. Yet for millions, it's the same person, maybe. How is that possible? That's why the station needs to reach all of them and wake them up. So please pick up the phone, call 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Make a donation, $50, $75, and support the idea of this antenna. Because if this antenna goes away, KPFK in Los Angeles, there will be nothing. There will be what we used to call Clear Channel, which is now called iHeart. You're going to have Glenn Beck, which is already ubiquitous. You're going to have all of this stuff on there. No alternative to lying all day, all night, all day, all night, all day, all night. You wonder why David Muir on CBS doesn't fact check, the way European Euronews does fact check. They actually break in and they'll do a whole 2-minute report on fact checking, so that their audience knows what BS is BS, whether it comes from this country, whether it comes from Europe, but they actually bother to do it. They bother to do it. Is it too much lifting for the Continental Broadcasting Corporation, for CBS, for Paramount, for Viacom to do 2 minutes of fact checking in a time where people are dying, where they don't have health care, where we're about to blow it up with Project 2025 and destroy everything we know? Is it too much to ask for them to assign one person to do fact checking and run it during the network news? Yes, it is too much to ask, but we do it here. We do it here, and that's why I'm asking you to pick up the phone right now and call 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Pick up that phone. Make a pledge, $75, $100, $50. Support Free Speech Radio. Support the free flow of information that is not constipated by somebody's wallet, that does not have some grifter in chief trying to steal, rob a bank. Like the Third Reich, just come in, take over country after country after country, cut deals with the Russian Empire, turn it into the new Soviet Union, hand over the United States, the keys to it. And there it is. Bob's your uncle. You're in prison. It's over. Sorry, no recourse, no government to say, I was asleep. Too late. That ship has sailed. Do you want that ship to sail, or do you want to have a fighting chance of awareness and enlightenment? Please pick up the phone, call 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Make a $50, $75, or $100 donation. And it's as simple as that. We're going to go to the phones in just a second. We're going to do a little sweeper, come back, and I'm going to play you a piece of video. This is CNN just yesterday when Melania Trump, well, she's written her book. We're going to get into that in just a second, and then we're going to take your calls.
Listen while it's still legal.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
All right, Cary Harris with you. It is Rethinking Heroes, RethinkingHeroes.com. Glad to have you here. You can always get our free newsletter at RethinkingHeroes.com, where you're going to get a copy of this show and archives of everything going back to the beginning of time. Plus, you'll be able to get transcripts and read my favorite part, of course, the callers, and also some of the monologues or whatever extemporaneous chitter chatter we do here, all unscripted. This is an old school skill set that we do here. Is we don't like read the newspaper on the radio, like all of this. And you are live, and we have to be on our toes, on our feet. We have to know stuff. We have to have read multiple newspapers. We have to have paid attention to life to be able to hang out together. That's your expectation, and it's mine back. I mean, I already expect that of you. So we're good. We're clean. And that's why I love being here. Melania Trump has written a book in which she states, after hearing Dr. Sarah Weddington, we just heard archival audio from 18 years ago of what she had to go through when she argued at age 27 in front of the United States Supreme Court and passed through Roe versus Wade. For 50 years, women have enjoyed agency. They've enjoyed their own bodies. They've actually owned their own bodies. Imagine that. Without a man saying, no, honey, this is 1866 and you are my indentured servant. Shut up and get back in the kitchen. How many women want to hear that again? Raise your hand. Yeah, none went up. That's where we're heading, especially with Project 2025. It's in writing. This isn't some fantasy. It's in writing. 900 delicious pages of everything you never wanted. And who is the original author of Project 2025? None other than Florida's former governor, Rick Scott, the one that preceded Florida's current governor, Ron DeSantis, who has caused more hell and mayhem and pain and suffering to tens of millions of people. Rick Scott came up with Project 2025. Then the Heritage Foundation got every other creep to add into it. It is the full whole cloth destruction of the infrastructure of this country. And I can tell you, my ancestors who signed the Declaration of Independence, who framed the Constitution, would have, is there a word even for that? It is so un-American. It so flies in the face of the spirit of our revolution against a king. And there it is. It makes a king. So you need to be awake. You need to be aware. Melania Trump writes a book, and in it states that she thinks that a woman has a right to own her own body, the things that reasonable people already believe. But she's doing it as if somehow secretly she wrote a book and her husband, Donald John Trump, didn't know. And here it is. And she's doing like little videos, promotional videos where the lighting is bad, like she stepped out onto the porch to do a TikTok video, and he's never going to know. And so normally when you write a book, you do a book tour. You've heard authors on this show, you've heard authors everywhere, and they're talking about their books. Well, she's offered a book tour to CNN, but here's what she did. Her publisher, this is not oops, has said, sure, she'll come on CNN for a book interview about why she thinks abortion is okay and why she thinks a woman ought to own her own body. And this is politics, by the way. This is Donald Trump's way of saying, I am 100% against abortion because my MAGA people have been trained for decades to be against it. Frankly, it probably saved his ass who knows how many times, right? Wink, wink. Uh-huh. So he's speaking to people riding the fence through Melania by pretending he had no idea, or it's just her opinion and she's allowed to have free speech. If you have that free speech and you say that you think a woman has a right to her body, you're a Democrat, a liberal, you need to be shot. He'll say that without a problem. But if it's his wife, who actually is going to help him campaign by making him look like secretly he's reasonable. So they go to CNN and they tell CNN, we'll bring on Melania for a CNN interview about her book for $250,000. Well, CNN still doesn't pay their guests. Thank God. We're close to that. They pay their experts. Oh, yeah. And the hair and makeup, all of it. Send limos out for people that are guests. But when they do a news interview, they still don't compensate them with cash. So this was not just cash. It was $250,000 to get Melania Trump on, knowing that CNN would have to say no. And when they say no, that means Melania is not going to have to sit there live and answer real questions about her husband's position and how he destroyed Roe v. Wade. He politicked on it for the last decade. He pulled it off. It's gone. Next will come Medicare. Next will come Social Security. But she is not going to sit exposed and actually have to deal with this stuff. So they put out a price point that was so impossible. CNN would say no anyway. But now they have ensured that her book gets out. The politics are successful. She never has to answer for it. This is that moment from CNN yesterday where they're talking about it.
Has tried to interview the former First Lady ahead of the release of her memoir, but her publisher responded with an unusual demand to CNN, a $250,000 price tag. CNN's Hadass Gold and I broke the story together today. Hadass, good to see you. So help our viewers understand from a media perspective how unusual a demand such as this is with such an incredibly high price tag nonetheless.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Most legitimate news organizations would never pay a public figure, especially the spouse of the Republican candidate for president, for an interview. Full stop. They just would not do that. Most news organizations have rules against any sort of payment to political organizations or to a candidate. So they would never pay for an interview with the spouse of the Republican candidate for president. And CNN has not and will not pay for such an interview. Now, in the past, media organizations have paid, especially when it comes to licensing photos or trying to get interviews with people who are involved in things like scandals or murders or the like. But paying for something related to politics, that in particular crosses essentially all of the media ethical boundaries. Now, a former First Lady being paid for a speaking engagement or for a book advance, that is not necessarily unusual. But Melania Trump is not just the former First Lady. She is also the spouse of the Republican candidate for president. So it is very unusual also that her team would send such a request and such a high amount for requests to a news organization. And let's be clear. Now, the publisher now says, after we reached out to them, that this was a miscommunication. But it's very clear in the conversations with CNN and in the contract that we've seen that they knew who they were dealing with, because the contract very clearly lays out that it's CNN that the contract is with and that it is for an interview. And I would like to stress there were several backs and forths between the publisher's team and CNN before this contract was even sent. So I will say that in their statement, the publisher says
important stuff, because what it does is it makes it impossible for her to be interviewed, because CNN, one, can't do this and hasn't yet changed their protocols, doesn't yet pay people to come on the news, which is good. This is a very positive thing. But they also made a price point where you couldn't slip it through. If it was like $20 or $200, it's not worth it. I mean, the hair and makeup people, that's 1 hour of their time. So it has to be a good amount. Could they get CNN to say yes? No. It's $250,000. And for Melania to come on, they're not going to pay it. They know they're not going to pay it. You heard multiple conversations. This is the kind of cheating that goes on in this campaign. Like nothing is above board, unfortunately, in the current GOP. Now, I was raised as a Republican. Does that mean I chose to be? No. It means that my parents hatched me. They happen to be Republicans. Nothing I can do about it. I'm like 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old. I know nothing about it. It means nothing to me. But I was raised in that world. But they were not MAGA people. I'm not going to say they were lovely people because they were not lovely people. But they did believe in reasonableness, and they did believe in being good to your neighbors, and they did believe in, probably would have believed in climate change had it actually come up at the time. They were fairly reasonable, sort of Eisenhower-flavored Republicans. This today is not that party. When Liz Cheney herself throws... Liz Cheney, she is as conservative as they get. I mean, really conservative. Don't be fooled just because she's not supporting the Trump party that she's somehow center or open-minded. She is not. She sees absolute whole cloth potential destruction to the Constitution. And how does she fare during that? She doesn't. And her father, wow, Henry Kissinger is now supporting Kamala Harris. Henry Kissinger! Who would have thought in anyone's lifetime that you'd even be able to say that? That's how bad it is. Seriously, that's how bad it is. So it's pretty extraordinary. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Why? How can there be tens of millions of people confused between Project 2025 and the guy who's going to captain it, rebuild the entire former Soviet Union, hand the keys to the United States over to that, become one big kumbaya, double dictators with nuclear weapons. And then you've got a woman. Yeah, let's go ahead and say Kamala Harris is a woman and a woman of color, right? That's a problem. Abortion has capitulated to the forefront of this 2024 presidential election, with many voters, especially women, citing it as a make or break issue, right? A recent poll found that abortion was the number one concern for suburban women voters in swing states. The shift largely driven by the Supreme Court's reversal of Roe v. Wade, which has left many feeling that their reproductive rights are under siege. Many called women. Men don't seem to care as much. Why? Because men don't have to spend 9 months parturient and then giving birth and then have to feed the result of their one night of romance or just drunken getting laid. This issue has become a defining line in the sand now between Democrats and Republicans, with Democrats actually being Democrats for the first time in those 18 years. Democrats holding now a significant edge on the issue. But what's driving this intense focus on abortion? Some would argue it's about control and agency. Why do some men seem threatened by women having autonomy over their own bodies? Let's look at burqas. Why do you throw a burqa on a woman? You throw it on her because the men simply cannot control themselves. They see a shapely set of buttocks. They see calipigious glutes, and they cannot control themselves. So they throw a tarpaulin over the woman, and now they can control themselves, and then they make her stay inside. So she's not even on the sidewalk. It is not women. It is the men who cannot control themselves. And I am a man, and I'm telling you, we cannot control ourselves. So we have to remove everything in our eyesight, in our path, that disrupts our way, because we are knuckle walking Hispidolites. I hate to say, not all, but many. I mean, when the president of the United States is grabbing, you know what I mean? Just grabbing it and says it's good. He can't even control himself as a billionaire. Why would a guy who's bankrupt and has nothing to lose even bother to control himself? He has nothing to lose. So you just remove the product. the product that is in your eyesight. I want to hear from you. Call in, share your thoughts. Are men truly threatened by women's agency, or is there more to the story? You can call 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985 KPFK. How will this issue impact your vote in the upcoming election? We're going to dive into this complex and contentious topic together. We're going to look at reproductive rights, the reversal of Roe v. Wade, having left many feeling uncertain about their access to safe and legal abortion. And remember, this is the hors d'oeuvre before the entree called Social Security and Medicare. It is the access point to destroy that. And then that's gone. And then it's a la carte and retail. And if you're already living on the sidewalk, you have nothing to lose. The rest of people have a lot to lose, but they don't know it's happening because it's not happening anywhere where they find out except here on KPFK and a handful of other places. So call in. Let me know, why are some men hesitant to support women's autonomy over their own bodies? Tell me the truth as a male and tell me the truth as a female at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. And we'll continue in just a tick.
We are in complete control. We are
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
All righty. It is Rethinking Heroes. Cary Harrison with you. Just a shout out to KPFK. We are so lucky. We are so blessed that we are still on the air. The amount of attacks and assaults that this station gets, it's popular. If it weren't popular, it wouldn't have any problems, right? Not popular, nobody knows, nobody cares. But it is popular. It really is rubbing bad people, or as the Defense Department would call them, bad guys, the wrong way. We are one of the only places, and this is the media capital of Earth, Los Angeles. We are putting light on the cockroaches. And you know, you do that at your own peril and your own risk. The cockroaches don't love it. They squirt back. That's a problem. So that's why we ask you to support us so we can continue in our mission here. I want you to pick up the phone right now and call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Please make a donation, $50, $75, $100, so that we can continue to do this work. Now, I can't speak for what goes on at 4 a.m. or whatever your thing might be, your decisions about whatever. I just know where I'm standing right now and the amount of effort and dedication I put in per week. Voluntarily, by the way. You know, I used to have multiple careers in radio, and then 5 networks or 5 corporations bought up all the stations. It's all AI. It's all pre-recorded. It's all computer. There's almost no live people left on the air. You're hearing a live person right now, but generally no live people left on the air. Maybe some morning shows. Most of it is pre-recorded. Most of it is AI. They have saved on salaries. They have saved millions of dollars on salaries. No more live news people. It's all pre-recorded. It's one company, maybe in Oklahoma, that does news for the entire nation, rip and read, and then the computer drops in the local call letters. There it is. It sounds great. You have no idea. But they're now paying one guy to service 1,400 radio stations, one DJ to service 1,400 radio stations. It's the same show. The computer just drops in the call letters, drops in the time. The weather comes out of Arkansas or somewhere for the whole nation, and it's super cheap outsourcing it like that, just as AT&T would outsource to India because it's cheaper than hiring Americans. It's just cheaper. So the profits go up, 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 up to the little guys at the top, and you lose the idea of impact, of local news, of finding out what's going on, why it's going on, who's behind it, what happened, because you're not going to get that. You're going to get homogenized information that fits in West Covina, as well as West Hollywood, as well as West Virginia. It works great in Alaska. It works beautifully in Key West, and nobody knows the difference. Homogenized nothingness. Here, we are focused and sharp. I want you to pick up the phone and call 818-985-KPFK. We're going to go to the phones in just a second. We're going to go to Lisa in Venice. We're going to go to Carlos and Carson, also calling 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. The numbers work for both call-ins and donations. To donate, to pledge, to support this station, support for real. I mean, we've been saying for years we're the last bastion of free speech, and we meant that. It was true. We're the last bastion of free speech. But now it is acutely true, because come November, if bad things happen, it's over. It's in Project 2025. And one of the candidates has even said all of it goes away. NPR itself will be completely defunded, gone. And this will be way before that. So you, unfortunately, are forced, as am I, to show up, to volunteer, to throw our bodies in, because if we don't do it, nobody will. And that's the really unfortunate reality. So I want you to pick up the phone, call 818-985-KPFK. Pick up the phone, call 818-985-5735. Please make a $50 donation, a $75 donation, an $83.43 donation right now at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, knowing that single donation, that one-time donation, will last for years, because all of this stuff, at least on this show, where we stream right now live on Facebook, we're live on Instagram, we're live on YouTube, we're live on TikTok, plus every single podcast platform this will render in, it will have a shelf life of years. You get the most incredible bang for your buck as we provide history and context to generations. Think of all the kids in the gym that are 2021 that live on skateboards that have no access to this. It's not taught in schools. It's not brought up, especially if they're in the South, where they're not allowed to have social studies. They're not allowed to understand anything. They're not even allowed to know that slavery even happened. They hear about it here. And we know they're listening to this show on Spotify. This is how they get access to it, by having this signal that you and I can show up on together. We get to redistribute the truth, reality, and give them a gentle smack across the face. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Please make a pledge now at 818-985-KPFK. Make the amount that fits for you, and just know how grateful millions of other people will be for your generosity. And now, back to the show.
Listen while it's still legal.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Okay. Well, Cary Harrison with you. This is Rethinking Heroes, RethinkingHeroes.com. And where you can get our free newsletter, you get a copy, archives of everything, and just hang out with us all over the place. I did say, Lisa in Venice wants to know that Henry Kissinger would vote for Kamala. She said he's dead. Well, so what? So what? Look it up. It's beautiful. Let's go to William from Long Beach. William, you made a pledge. We love you. You're on the air. Welcome. Hello, William. Okay. Let's go to Carlos. You're on Rethinking Heroes. Welcome to the show.
Well, listen, abortion is nothing but a mechanism for the super financial elite like the Rockefellers to lower the world's population so they can have spacious big parks to hunt over humans. You know, the Rockefellers Foundation funded Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger way back then. Their objective is to lower the world's population. They had joint experimentations with the Nazis, the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of the Nazis, to kill the weak. Okay,
this is great. I mean, parts of it are probably true enough. I mean, who put us on the moon? The Nazis. Werner von Braun, who gave the V1 and V2 rockets. Operation Paperclip, the day after World War II ended, brought 1,600 Nazis to the United States, gave them cars, houses, and fake names. So we know all of that is true. But abortion is not about population reduction, because it reduces the wrong population. This is why it's been reversed. If you pay attention, if you understand, Carlos, look at why it was reversed. It is to increase the Republican Party's physical population. Increase it, not decrease it. You ban it, you now are plus 150,000 white people that cannot be aborted under the law. And then the job, according to the Wall Street Journal and according to Bloomberg, according to hedge fund leaders, their job is to groom these young kids into becoming Republicans and keeping that party alive. That's why it's been reversed. It has nothing to do with morals, because have you ever heard, and Carlos, be honest with me, have you ever heard anyone complaining that too many Black women or Latina women are having abortions? Have you ever heard that publicly said by any politician on TV?
Look, most people
yes or no. That's a yes or no. It's a yes or no question. Yes or no. Yes or no, Carlos. Yes or no.
Don't give me that.
No. Don't you walk around the question, J.D. Vance. Don't you pull a J.D. Vance. I'm asking you a direct question. Have you ever heard a politician in public say that too many Black women or Latina women are having abortions, and that's a problem? Have you ever heard that? If so, who?
I have never
heard that. You have never heard that because it has never been said. It is not being said. It is only about white women. So we know exactly the whole point of the reversal of Roe v. Wade. It has nothing to do with the Rockefellers. It does have everything to do with people in power that have money, that have assets, that want to keep control, keep a patriarchy, and they need to have the foot soldiers to do it who happen to be white people that believe in this stuff, that believe in white colonialism. So there it is. It's simple.
You said that it was all a Republican ploy in order to have more white people. But you know, the greater amount of people that are reproducing are Latino and Black, and they vote Democrat. Come on, it's counter to what your argument is.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. They don't count the same way to Republicans. It's about the Republican Party having enough white people in attendance to keep that party alive and girthy. It's a specific targeted move. Do you believe that the hedge traders and that the people in power you mentioned earlier, the Rockefellers and such, do you actually believe they're powerful and that they think about stuff? It sounds like you do believe it. Well, okay. So tell me how,
Foundation,
if you're a dwindling party,
the COVID vaccinations, come on, they're all over the place.
You're all over the place. You're not keeping the train on the tracks here. We're talking now about COVID. Next, we're going to be on UFOs. Stick with me here. You have a party that is falling apart. It is aging out. In Florida, 16% of the Republican Party are white people over 80. When they're gone, people like DeSantis won't have a chance to survive. They're not being replaced by white people. You get rid of abortion, you now have plus 150,000 white people to support a party that does not need to be huge to win. We know that. Are there even enough white people alive to fairly elect Donald Trump today? You saw halftime at Super Bowl. It was like 10,000 people who don't look like Donald Trump or Melania. You look at LA, you find that white folks like me are a minority. That's the reality in this country. It's a minority. There are not enough white people physically to fairly elect Donald Trump. So you have to create gerrymandering. You have to do all kind of circumlocution to be able to pull it off. And this is one technique to do it. It is not about morals. You will never hear Wall Street people talk about morality with abortion. You will never hear them pluck Bible quotes because there are none. It is purely about football and real estate, just as World War II was about real estate, just as Putin versus Ukraine is about real estate, just as Gaza, the Gaza Marine, the larger Israeli footprint is about real estate. It's all about real estate, football, soccer, call it whatever you want. It's sports. And that's the unfortunate part. If we can get down to a human plebiscite where all the humans on earth actually got to vote, as they did in ancient Greece, we had large auditoriums and they actually had a kind of a democracy. Do you think people would vote against basic things they need? No. All right. Cary Harrison with you, reminding you to pick up the phone, call 818-985. I'm sorry about all the other callers, but my brain bleeds when I talk to that guy, even though I do love the calls. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Please make a donation, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.